Okay. All right, good evening. At this time, I would call to order the May 21st Columbia Borough Planning Commission workshop. Could I have a roll call, please?
Sure. Chairperson Wickenheiser,
Here.
Vice Chair T. Lin,
Present.
Secretary B. Lin,
Here.
Member Evans,
Here.
Member Hartman,
Here.
Member Roach, Member Leclerc.
Here.
Okay. I did have an email from Nathan that he would probably be unavailable again this evening. And I think within our meeting, we need to put feelers out for at least an alternate. I went back to Nathan. It's his decision to make. I know he is on school board and he was on the ballot for school board again. So I don't know if there's some overcommitment there, but we'll see how that plays out. But if there is anybody you know of that we can approach, even if Nathan is able to remain, we still have no alternate at this time. Okay. So, moving on to the agenda, do I have a motion regarding the minutes of our April 15th meeting as presented in our packet?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion from B. Lynn and a second from T. Lynn. Any comments, corrections? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Ordinance 957. This has been quite the process putting this together. This ordinance, as presented in our packets, is at this time been through council review. At their meeting last week, they motioned to forward it to both Columbia Borough Planning for review and comment, and to forward to Lancaster County Planning for their review and comment. They're trying to move this forward as quickly as possible, but in all probability, it's going to be the July, possibly August timeframe before this would be back to council for a vote for passage and to amend. So this is basically what we worked on at our March 20th joint meeting. I hope you've had a chance to review it. I know following our last work session, there was still some comments regarding, in particular, definitions for the package delivery service as to what that was going to be. There has also been a change there, section 3 of the proposed ordinance has to do with the building height. And where this came from was Council President Zink, that when they started looking further at some other areas of the ordinance, right now, you could put a 90-foot building within 30 foot of a residential property line. So that is what that section 3 is addressing. And then they also found there was another ordinance that they found that they really liked, that section 3, number 5, that it has to do with shadows being cast by the building. And what they have done is currently, if you were to look at section 3, if you were to look at chapter 220, 26B3, there are 5 number items under there. And the fifth item referred to the airport. So that has been eliminated and replaced by that no building or structure shall be constructed which will cause a shadow on the south-facing wall of any dwelling measured at the first floor between the hours of 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. on any winter solstice day, December 21st. So that was one thing that was added, plus the provision for the setback, that it would increase based on any additional height. That 30-foot was based on a 35-foot height of a building. So the actual table, anything that is bold-faced are the changes that are being made and which were agreed upon at our March 20th meeting. And then the other thing is in section 5 of the ordinance, changing the table of dimensional requirements to what we were discussing as to the minimum lot area and the maximum coverage being changed. So I think a lot of what we are seeing in here follows along with some of the suggestions that Justin had made. I don't know if there are any things within that that you feel need to be changed. And the thought was that any recommendations we would make would be basically de minimis changes, that if this goes forward to Planning Commission in its current, even if we were to decide to make some minor changes to it, it would not have to go back to county planning. And council has the final say. If county planning comes back with something and council doesn't agree with it, it's their decision. Am I right, Justin?
Yes, yeah, it is their decision, correct.
So,
I thought it was very well done,
Mm-hmm.
quick too.
Yeah.
So it took into account all the feedback from our joint meeting and,
All of yours, which is great.
thank you very much
And-
for your feedback.
and
yeah, well,
your-
sorry about
your
the,
work.
I don't know, you guys couldn't open it. I was trying to get it done before I left town that week. And I don't
It's
know,
great.
everything, it was in the cloud and it
Right.
stayed there, I guess. I don't know, second-
There were thunderheads.
Yeah, I'm adapting slowly, I guess.
So I think the other thing we're seeing here is with this ordinance, we're finally codifying
Mm.
both the marijuana dispensary and the tattoo ordinance that
Those were the two that were lost.
never made it into the ordinance.
Mary, I thought that we had discussed the possibility of highway commercial for the marijuana dispensary. And now it's just in light business.
In industrial, yeah.
It's in industrial.
But not highway.
How does that change now that the state
Light
is
industrial
trying
and
to
general.
have marijuana
This is-
recreationally? Because
See-
once it goes recreational, you don't even need medical marijuana.
That'll be controlled by the state.
That'll
though,
be
like the-
controlled.
Like
We-
the liquor control board
Right, but it
does
would do
the
away
state
with
stores.
dispensaries because you wouldn't even
Well,
necessarily.
one of-
need
Not
it.
necessarily.
One of the things is in the definition of smoke shop, we have THC and THCA. And there was actually discussion as to whether it was beneficial or not to leave that in the description. And with the solicitor there that evening, they felt that leave it in, that it would help. And
In the CBD.
And I actually thought, Tiffany, with the dispensary, that the ordinance called for it to be in the light industrial. The ordinance itself called for it to be in the light industrial. And our discussion was to also add it to the light
Light
business. I didn't know that highway commercial had entered into discussion as
Okay.
a permitted use there.
Which one is that?
The
The
marijuana
marijuana
dispensary,
Was that what was,
that,
so
by
is it
the ordinance, it was permitted in
in
light
LIGI?
industrial.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was permitted there, and we added it to the print.
With this ordinance, got it.
New
Yes.
ones, yeah. So the smoke shops though
Are
would
are
strictly
just-
be
right.
commercial.
strictly in the highway commercial.
Great. Not that we need any more.
Right, right.
Did you see in the restaurant inspections that one down the street selling THC gummies?
Which
I
one?
wish there was something better, like some sort of better, state law that
Well, it should be
shut them
enforced.
down for that.
Right.
Mhm. It's the
I think the
grocery
one,
store
where
that
it's
opened
supposed
down next to
be.
B&T
Oh,
printing.
With lights that were so bright, like
Right,
they were distracting cars.
yeah.
That would be against harm, right?
And we have our daycare, our child daycare in there as permitted,
the
an
accessory.
accessory use.
Right.
So I think the tables, pretty much, I think the tables have it set the way we had
Right.
agreed to it.
Right.
I think the definitions, I know we had quite the discussion about the package delivery distribution center.
Mhm.
And I would like to know that you are all okay with that definition as it is there. A facility of 50,000 square foot maximum that
Right.
specializes in transporting packages weighing less than 150 pounds from one location to another.
Yes.
Are you okay with that, Brad?
I mean, I expanded an email for you.
Yeah, I
to
know
you,
you
but
expanded, and
If you want it concise, then that's good. Good for me.
because the one you had was from point A to point B, and there was other,
Yeah, I kind of expanded on it a bit, but I don't know how much we really need to expand on that. It pretty much says
and I think
what
I
needs to be said.
replied to you in that email that we would discuss it.
Right. I
Okay.
appreciate that.
So,
You think that pretty much hits it, Justin?
I mean, I think the whole conversation with council and then, I'm assuming discussion in April too,
mhm,
it is what you define it as, and
Right.
there's no perfect way to do it. So, I mean, I guess, Evan taking a look at it. Issues. I think the concern was just trying to make sure there wasn't huge warehouses down there with all the truck traffic. So,
right. And then these changes will be incorporated into the existing, because this is not all of the table of permitted uses. So these
Right.
would be incorporated into the attachment to the zoning ordinance.
And did you see the addition of the height restriction?
Yes,
Yeah.
we already discussed that,
Sorry, I was late at work.
and we were good with that.
But I like that whole,
Shadow,
the shadow thing. I like that. I didn't even think about that until Derek sent me that.
mhm.
But that makes sense, especially with someone like me that has lots of plans.
So,
If I had good light coming in and a building went up that blocked all my light, I'd be kind of upset.
so I think at this point,
What?
I said I would have never thought to put that in.
Me neither.
No.
Me neither. And
But it makes sense.
It was the McGinnis team meeting. They were like, oh, wait a minute. What about height? And then they explained it like, the way you're written now, you can go 35 feet off the property line and put up a 90-foot building.
mhm,
You really want that? I was like, no. That doesn't, maintain the character of the community, the residential neighborhood.
Yeah, what that section does,
Yeah.
that change to 220-26B3, currently, there were height restrictions for several of the districts, and then it said within all other districts. So that's now being changed to within the light business districts and that definition. Number 3 is being changed to that. And then 4 will remain the within all other districts. So right now, you're only listing height restrictions in the CRR, LDR, MDR, HDR, MDRB, NCP, and LB. Any other districts would fall under number 4 within this section. That's what it was.
Mm.
And then number 5 was
For the airport.
for the airport. See also the Borough Airport approach. So that no longer exists. Okay, so I am going to ask, after all we have done with this in trying to get this together, is the planning commission members in attendance comfortable with moving this forward
Yes.
as presented?
Yes.
With no further
Yes.
changes.
Yes.
So you will see on the planning commission meeting, there is a line item to recommend the approval.
Mhm.
So I've reached the point, and I hope we're within bounds to do this, that council has their work sessions, and then a week later, they have their council meeting where they can take action. For us to have our work sessions and wait a month to take action, I am looking at setting the precedent that if there are items we're going to be discussing, I'm going to put them on our planning commission agenda
Sure.
to take
the same
action the
night.
same
Absolutely.
evening. I think we did lose one item there about a year ago. There was an ordinance that we had looked at. We were going to 921. Why do I think it was 921? So what I discussed with Paula when we set the agendas, if there are things that we are going to act on, following discussion, we're going to put it on the agenda. We're going to get it all out and not lose it.
Mhm.
So any further discussion, we will move forward with this then to make our recommendation, make our vote at our planning commission meeting.
Great.
I think we need, the next thing on our agenda here is to get back to the zoning district consolidation. We had started this how long ago? And then we got pulled away. And I think at this time we need to get back to this. And the other thing, at one point, I think Jessica was working on the additional dwelling unit,
Oh, the accessory dwelling.
the
units.
accessory dwelling units, yes. And I think we may need to get back and, because I think a while ago I had heard something from council that they felt that that was something we needed to follow up on too, that was becoming a hot item. And we need to have something. So Paul, if you would follow up with Jessica for our next meeting to see if she had put anything together on that. And if she had, would she be able to forward or present to us that we're not going to lose that.
Did the short-term rental thing get worked
The
out?
short-term rental, out of our March 20th meeting, we basically left that as is.
Correct.
This,
That
yeah.
there was nothing being done to that, that there was discussion among several council members about combining short and long-term rentals into a combined ordinance.
Wasn't
Is-
that discussed at the joint meeting?
Mhm.
Yes. So that at this point, the short-term rental was left sit as it was. We were not going to make any changes until the decision was made, if that's the direction that council wanted to go to combine those. It didn't make sense on us beating our heads against a wall about making changes to short-term rental if it's going to be consolidated. So Heather, is that still the direction that council wants to go? Is anyone working on it?
It's in Dunsmore, East legislation.
Okay,
Um, I have reservations, but
I do too.
I don't think they should be combined.
no, I
think so
don't
either.
either, but the voice, I don't. I have reservations on how that would work. Because there are obviously things that
Very different.
we would want to regulate in short-term rental that we wouldn't.
There's apples and oranges there. You're
Can't
trying.
combine them.
Right, but I believe Kelly's working on that, or at least he should be, because he's legislation.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know, I mean, I can ask him. I'm not
Okay.
sure.
I can also touch base with him to find out what he wants to do with that.
What would your feedback be, Paula?
I'm not so sure they should be lumped together.
They're two
You
totally
agree.
different. They're totally different.
So that should be related.
And Heather shared with me a document from county planning. I love it.
There,
The simplified zoning.
there are some things that I love and some things that I don't. I like the way that it focuses more on, like Glenn gave us the presentation. And it has so many districts, obviously not everyone would have
Right.
to have all of those districts.
Because there were a lot of agriculture districts,
Right, yeah,
which are
there's a lot of
nothing to us.
agricultural that's
Right.
doesn't pertain to us. But instead of focusing on permitted uses, it focuses on permitted impacts.
Mhm.
So something could have moderate traffic impacts or increases pedestrian traffic, which, for residential, that's
Right.
what you want. What I didn't like about it was that it left it to subjective in those impacts. Like it says moderate noise impact or moderate noise increase.
Mhm.
Well, what might be moderate to me is a whole lot different than what's moderate to my neighbor. And so how do you define moderate? That's what I didn't like. And I didn't like, also thinking about it, if you look at it that way and take out all of like the permitted uses
Mhm.
and go to impacts, we would not be able to regulate a smoke shop.
Mhm.
We would not be able to regulate a tattoo parlor. Like those individual uses would be gone. And I'm not sure that I'm ready to give that up either.
So Heather, I think one of the things when you approached me with this is to have him come and give a presentation to planning. Was
Yeah, I
that
mean,
one of the
I'll-
things?
Yeah, Gwen said she is
Mhm.
more than happy to come and have a conversation with any municipality. I think she's just thrilled to have something to present at this point,
Mhm.
because like you said, Mary, they've been working on this for years.
Yeah,
Pre-COVID.
we were part of,
Yeah.
pre-COVID,
Yeah.
there with
Doing the
attorneys
seminars
and
downtown.
realtors
Yep.
and that, yeah.
Yeah.
And what I'm bringing this up, one of the reasons I'm bringing this up now is, we're looking at combining our districts, but would Planning Commission want to try to set up something for our next workshop,
Mhm.
which would be June 17th, to find out if she would be available to come and give a presentation.
Yeah, I can send an email.
And in the meantime, what I would like to do is Heather sent this to me as electronically. It is 58 pages.
Oh my.
Yes, it is.
And I would send it to you, kind of give you a heads
Okay.
up as to what it is. But it's very interesting, and based on what we did, that was at least 2-3 years ago. Pre-COVID, it was around the time of COVID.
That's when we were having the big work
Right.
meetings
Down
at
at county
building.
planning, yeah.
And I think Jessica touched on that a little bit during the comp plan meetings.
So if, we could set her up to come for our 17th meeting, that would be great.
Work session.
The work session,
Mhm.
we do it with the work session. Okay. Yeah, that's what the document looks like.
If anyone wants to restate it or whatever.
So it is quite a lengthy document, and as Heather said, there are quite a number of the things that would not apply to us, because there's a lot of agricultural, there's a lot of in there.
Right.
It would apply more to the townships
Sure.
than to the boroughs.
How would the applicant present that kind of information to the zoning hearing board? Impact
These are questions.
information.
Bring these questions.
Because if one of them is, say, vehicle traffic, well, if you come into my block at 7:45 in the morning, you're going to see lots of walking and lots of cars because of school.
Right.
If you come at 1:30, there's nobody around.
Mhm.
And if you come back at 3:00, you're going to have the same thing. It's just, that was kind of my thought
Right.
process when Jessica presented that. And I was like,
Mhm.
oh, yeah, how do you do that?
Mhm.
So,
And it's subjective.
Mhm.
That's what, yeah, that was the big thing I said that I
Right.
didn't like, is that it is really subjective. How do you monitor, or how do you gauge, moderate odor impact?
Mhm.
What even is that?
yeah, somebody may be more sensitive to something than someone else.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think it's being proposed. It's been hanging out there for a number of years. And if, we have someone willing to come and talk to us about it, present it, it's something for us to look at. Because I truthfully think that our zoning ordinance, and I think there are a number of people who agree, it needs to be
Oh,
redone.
well,
It is.
Most
that
do.
goes without
Most do.
saying.
Oh,
All you have to do is use it for a few years and,
Yeah.
it's
and
not
it doesn't-
user friendly.
To make it more user friendly or to reduce some of the bulk of it, you could do that without going full, completely
tilt.
go that way.
Right.
mhm.
I mean, there may be some certain areas
Combine
where we
both.
could make it simpler.
Right.
Yeah, right, without going full thing. Because you're right. I mean, enforcement becomes a bigger problem when there's no defined standard, right?
Mhm.
All that. And so that and evaluating whether you can issue a permit for something if it's based on subjective things makes it pretty difficult on the staff to do that. So I think it sounds like we're all kind of in the same boat, as we don't want to create more problems by trying to solve the ones that we
Mhm.
have. But there's probably some ways that we can make it better. But
Mhm.
you're right, a full rewrite is probably in the cards at some point, and we're not alone there.
You know, you can't just keep amending.
Correct.
You lose track of what your actual content is. So, oops. Sorry. Okay. Consolidation. This came out, some of this came out of the comp plan, the future land use map about going from 17 to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Basically 7 to 8 zoning districts. And oops. That's what I said, 58 pages there. You know, and even looking at that, there were different downtown. The downtown was defined in several different ways. So, industrial in the proposed zoning map, that would be light business, light industrial, and general industrial would be the districts combined to form the strictly industrial area.
Although I guess we'd be leaving out LB this time since it's, I don't think they want to, council want to combine that with the industrial districts now, right?
No,
We made all
not since
those
they did
changes.
that. So that's leaving you still with, you would just be combining LI and LG
For industrial. Yeah.
for
Makes sense.
industrial. Okay.
The other one was what, DC, NC, and MDRB? Is that what you had there?
Yeah. Yeah, because they're looking at a downtown mixed use,
Oh, that's right. Yeah, D/MU.
which would be downtown commercial, riverfront commercial, medium density, residential, and neighborhood commercial zoning.
Yeah.
To combine all those into a strictly downtown mixed use. And the only thing with that is if you combine all of those, that would open up your short-term rental.
Hmm.
Because your short-term rental is in the medium density residential business. But you would still have the provision there
It would have to meet
defining,
the parameters.
defining the structure for the
Right.
short-term rental, that it would still have to be
You still have to meet those criteria.
those criteria. But it would open up other areas of the borough for STRs, if they could comply with those,
Right.
with those restrictions on it. And there would be a gateway commercial. Good evening.
Hi,
Hi.
All right.
how are you?
Which one is Gateway? What was that?
Route 30 interchange, previously zoned downtown commercial, highway commercial, and light industrial.
That's right.
That's described as in gateway commercial future land use, a small area along South Front Street and the existing commercial area along Lancaster Avenue east of Shawnee Run.
Both ends.
Okay, it split the highway commercial.
It splits the highway commercial.
At Shawnee
Yeah.
Run. Yep.
Yeah, at Shawnee Run. Yeah, because it takes some of that from northwest of Shawnee Run into that downtown mixed use. Conservation combines commercial recreation, which is a borough farm, rural residential, which is the cottages. And they're looking at Zion Hill Cemetery and a buffer along both sides of Shawnee and Strickler Run. That would be the conservation. You know, look over these, see the maps, see how they look, see how it would affect your tables there. And I think we'll continue this.
If short-term rentals get taken out of the zoning ordinance, then we won't be the table, right?
That's right, if they were to combine them. But the thing is, it seems like part of the thing with short-term rentals is wanting to expand where they would be allowed.
Mhm.
And I think that was one of the main discussions when we
Right.
had our joint meeting, that there was a desire to expand it.
So that would allow for that,
So
but
if
they
you,
still have to meet the criteria, and that would help to keep it.
right,
It seemed like there was
Okay.
consensus on which direction to go though, so.
no, there
Still
wasn't.
has yet to get
Right.
played out.
Hmm.
I definitely don't think it should be combined,
No, the-
especially for staffing purposes and
Short and
for
long-term rental,
regulations.
no.
They're
no.
completely different.
But if you were to combine these zoning districts,
Right. That would allow
That
for
would-
more.
that would expand the area where STRs would be allowed, but yet they would still have to maintain that single structure,
Right.
you know, and the other criteria for the short-term rental.
Right.
Mhm.
So I'm okay with
What
that.
it would simply do is change where it would be permitted. So any further discussion on this, or we look forward to next month with our, take a 15-minute break here before our next meeting?
Yeah, so what do we need to do next on this combining districts? Nothing. They were kind of,
I think what we need to do is maybe put together a list of, do we want to move forward with these recommendations to combine these? And I think at that point, we present them to council to let them know that we want to move forward with this. Okay. Or at
And
this,
then that would officially change the map.
that would officially change the map to this map that is in the comp plan.
Right.
This one.
Yeah.
Wrong map, too many maps. It would be this one.
Yeah.
This future land use plan. And the
I think
utility,
we should
what is,
finalize that.
yeah, what is,
Finally.
what this future land use is pulling out a utility zone, which is basically your,
It's in the gray,
it's
right?
your railroad,
Mhm.
it's your railroad area, Route 30.
Right.
It's even pulling out the railroad running along Shawnee Run there. So that's what's being carved out as a utility area. So you would have to define that.
That just looks a lot cleaner.
Yeah,
More condensed.
it describes utility, future land use would be part of utility or transportation easements. Includes lands that were previously identified as conservation, highway, commercial, light industrial, and general industrial. So that's what that's doing, saying, hey, this is utility easements, you can't really build there. That it is what
Stay
it
open.
is. So I think what we will do is for next month's workshop, I'll try putting something together based off of this recommendation for the zoning map and future land use map. And we'll see if that's a direction we want to go, and possibly then forward a recommendation to council to move forward with this.
Okay, great.
Okay,
Thank you.
so I think we've got plans for next month. If we can get the
Have a
simplified
presentation.
zoning, get that together, have a presentation on that, and move forward and see what we think of that. Try and keep in line with what county planning is doing, okay? So at 6:45, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Our
So
next
moved.
meeting being June 17th at 6 p.m.
Second.
Okay, have a motion from T. Lynn and a second from Justin. All in favor?
Aye.
These were left on the steps, I think.
Okay, so we're no longer